The giant alien ship appeared in Earth's orbit on a Monday morning. It was huge, bigger than any human spacecraft ever built. All across the world, people looked up at the sky and wondered what would happen next. At the United Nations Space Council building in Geneva, Director Susan Miller got the call at 5:30 a.m. She rushed to the emergency meeting room, where military and government officials were already gathering. "What do we know about them?" Susan asked as she entered the room. Admiral Jack Powell, head of Earth's Combined Defense Forces, pointed to the large screen showing the alien vessel. "They call themselves the Viridian Collective. 7 different alien species working together. This is their diplomatic ship. They're requesting a meeting," said Commander Lisa Dunn, pushing her tablet across the table. "They want to talk to Earth's leaders at the International Space Station Alpha." Susan read the message carefully. "They sound formal, but not threatening. Set up the meeting for tomorrow. We'll take a small delegation." 24 hours later, Susan, Admiral Powell, Captain Alan Ward, and Commander Dunn floated in the conference room of the space station. The station had been cleared of all non-essential personnel. The airlock doors slid open, and the human delegation got their first look at the aliens. The leader was tall, nearly 8 feet, with a shiny blue-green shell covering its body. It had 4 arms and walked on 2 legs. Behind it came 4 other aliens, each looking different from the others. "I am Supreme Commander Zix Cora of the Viridian Collective," the leader said through a translation device. Its voice sounded like metal grinding against metal. "We control over 50 star systems and have come to add yours to our territory." Susan stepped forward. "Welcome to Earth, Commander. I'm Director Susan Miller of the United Nations Space Council. We're interested in peaceful relations with your people." Zix Cora's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "Peace is possible through your complete surrender. The Viridian Collective requires your planet's resources and strategic position." The humans exchanged confused glances. "Surrender?" Admiral Powell asked. "We've only just met. You have 30 Earth days to turn over control of your planet and all off-world colonies," Zix Cora continued. "If you refuse, we will destroy your military capabilities and take what we need by force." The alien pulled out a small device and pressed a button. A hologram appeared showing thousands of warships. "This is 1/10 of our fleet. It will arrive in 31 days. The room went quiet. Susan looked at her team, expecting to see worry or fear on their faces. Instead, she saw Captain Ward's lips twitching. Commander Dunn was biting her lip. Admiral Powell was the first to break. A small chuckle escaped his mouth. "Is something amusing about your situation?" Zix Cora asked, its voice rising. That did it. Admiral Powell started laughing openly. Then Captain Ward joined in. Even the usually serious Commander Dunn couldn't hold back a smile. "I'm sorry," Susan said, trying to stay professional while fighting her own urge to laugh. "It's just that. Is this really how you introduce yourselves to new species? With threats?" Zix Cora's body stiffened. "This is not a threat. This is reality. The collective has never been defeated. Have you ever actually fought a war?" Admiral Powell asked between laughs. "Or do you just show up, make threats, and collect planets from scared species?" The alien commander's 4 arms moved in different directions, a sign of confusion, Susan guessed. "Your laughter is inappropriate," Zix Cora said. "We have conquered 12 planetary systems. Without firing a shot. I bet," Captain Ward said. Susan raised her hand to quiet her team. "Commander Zix Cora, humans don't respond well to threats. We have a long history of standing up to bullies, no matter their size. I suggest you return to your ship and reconsider your approach." "You dare to call the mighty Viridian Collective bullies?" Zix Cora's voice rose to a screech. "If the shoe fits," Commander Dunn muttered. Susan stepped forward again. "We're open to peaceful talks between equals, but we will not surrender our planet. Not in 30 days. Not ever." Zix Cora's body changed colors. from blue-green to an angry red. You will regret this response, humans. The countdown begins now. The aliens turned and left the room. Once the airlock closed behind them, the whole human delegation burst into relieved laughter. "Did you see their faces?" Admiral Towell said. "They've never had anyone laugh at them before." "I think we just confused the hell out of them," Captain Ward said. Susan smiled but then grew serious. "They're still dangerous. We have 30 days to prepare, but at least now we know something important." "What's that?" Commander Dunn asked. 3 hours after the meeting with the aliens, Susan Miller stood in front of the United Nations Security Council in New York. The room was packed with world leaders and military chiefs from every major nation. "So they just announced they're going to invade us?" asked President Karen White, leaning forward in her chair. "Yes, Madam President," Susan replied. "They gave us 30 days to surrender before their fleet arrives." Defense Secretary Maria Rodriguez frowned. "And your team laughed at them. Was that wise?" Admiral Powell stepped up to the podium. "It wasn't planned, but I think it was the best thing we could have done." He pressed a button, and the large screen showed images of the alien ship. "We scanned their vessel during the meeting. Their technology is advanced, but their weapons systems look unused." "What does that mean?" asked the Chinese representative. Dr. Sam Fletcher, Earth's top expert on alien biology, joined them at the front of the room. He was a tall man with messy hair and glasses that kept sliding down his nose. "It means," Dr. Fletcher said excitedly, "that they're bluffing, at least partly. We studied their physical reactions during the meeting. When you laughed, their body temperature rose and their color changed. They were surprised and confused." He showed slides of the aliens' biology. "Look at their build. The Viridians evolved from prey species. Their entire approach is based on looking scary to avoid actual fighting." Intelligence Officer Diane Monroe stepped forward next. She was short with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. "We intercepted and decoded some of their communications after they left the station. They're genuinely shocked by our response. They've conquered 12 other planetary systems, but all of them surrendered immediately after the first threat." The room grew quiet as everyone processed this information. "So they're bullies who've never been stood up to," President White said finally. "Exactly," Admiral Powell nodded. "Their ships are impressive, but we believe they've never actually used them in combat. They've always relied on fear alone." Dr. Fletcher adjusted his glasses. "Every species they've encountered before evolved similar fear responses. When a smaller animal sees a bigger one, it freezes or runs away. The Viridians expect all intelligent life to react the same way. But humans don't," Susan added. "When we're threatened, we often respond with anger or even humor." "That's why we laughed," Commander Dunn explained. "Their whole approach seemed absurd to us. Who shows up and immediately threatens war without any diplomacy?" President White stood up and walked to the center of the room. "So what do you suggest we do?" "We prepare to defend ourselves, of course," Admiral Powell said. "But I think we should also show them what they're up against. They need to understand that humans fight back." Dr. Fletcher nodded enthusiastically. "And we need to keep communicating with them. They clearly don't understand human psychology. Our laughter confused them more than any weapon could." "I like it," the president said. "We'll call it Operation Cosmic Joke. We'll prepare our defenses while also trying to educate these aliens about humanity." Secretary Rodriguez looked concerned. "Should we tell the public? There could be panic." "We tell them everything," President White decided. "Humans handle fear better when they understand what they're facing, and I think many will have the same reaction we did." She was right. When the news broke that evening, the initial shock quickly gave way to determination and even humor. Social media filled with jokes about the aliens. Late-night comedy shows created skits about confused alien invaders. T-shirts appeared with the slogan, "Sorry, we don't surrender." At Space Force headquarters in Colorado, Commander Greg Phillips watched his team run battle simulations. They had been analyzing the Viridian technology from scans taken during the meeting. Their ships look impressive, he told his pilots, but their weapons systems have a major weakness. They're designed to intimidate, not to actually fight a war. The pilots nodded. One raised her hand. So what's our strategy, sir? Phillips smiled. We're going to teach them that threatening humans is the cosmic joke of the century. 2 weeks passed quickly. Across Earth, Mars, and the Europa moon base, humans worked day and night to prepare. But unlike what the aliens might have expected, there was no mass panic. Instead, a strange mood of determined calm spread through human territories. At the Space Force Training Center in Nevada, Commander Greg Phillips watched his pilots run through another simulation. On the large screen, virtual Earth fighters dodged around a massive alien vessel. "Good work, Johnson," he said as one pilot successfully disabled a Viridian ship without destroying it. "Remember, we want to show them we can beat them, not that we want to kill them." The pilot, a young woman with short blonde hair, nodded. "Their ships are big but slow. They've never had to dodge or weave." "Exactly," Commander Phillips said. "They've never fought anyone who fought back. They don't know how to react to actual combat." Across the room, a team of engineers worked on modifying Earth's defense satellites. Chief Engineer Olivia Grant, a tall woman with dark skin and clever hands, adjusted something inside an open panel. "The Viridians use quantum field technology for their shields," she explained to her team. "It's advanced, but it has a major weakness." "What's that?" asked a young engineer. "They've designed it to stop energy weapons like lasers," Olivia said. "But our old electromagnetic pulse weapons go right through. Sometimes older tech is better than new." Meanwhile, at United Nations headquarters, Dr. Eric Johnson led a team studying the Viridian language and culture. The linguist had spent days analyzing the recordings from the first meeting. "Their entire language is built around dominance," he told Susan Miller during their daily briefing. "They don't have words for compromise or mutual benefit. Everything is about who's stronger." Susan frowned. "That makes negotiating difficult." "But not impossible," Dr. Johnson said. "We're preparing new translation software that will help explain human concepts they might not understand. Like why we laugh when threatened." Susan asked with a small smile. "Exactly," Dr. Johnson nodded. "To them, laughter is a sign of submission or fear. They can't understand that for us. It can be a way of dealing with stress or pointing out something absurd." On the moon base, Admiral Powell inspected the newly installed defense systems. Captain Alan Ward walked beside him, checking items off on his tablet. "The lunar cannons are ready," Captain Ward said. "And we've hidden 20 smaller ships behind the dark side of the moon." "Good," Admiral Powell said. "The Viridians will expect us to defend Earth directly. They won't look for an ambush from the moon." They stopped at a viewing window that looked out over the lunar surface. Earth hung in the black sky, beautiful and blue. "Do you think they'll really attack?" Captain Ward asked. Admiral Powell sighed. "I think they don't know what else to do. Their whole strategy depends on scaring others into surrender. Now that we've laughed at them, they either have to attack or lose face." "But they've never actually fought a war," Ward said. "And we've fought too many," Powell replied. "Maybe that's our real advantage." Back on Earth, ordinary life continued with surprising normality. In Chicago, people went to work, children attended school, and restaurants stayed open. The only signs of the coming conflict were the increased military presence and the constant news updates. In a small cafe, 2 old men played chess while watching a news report about the aliens. "Aren't you worried?" asked the waitress as she refilled their coffee. One of the men shrugged. "I've lived through 3 wars and 1 pandemic. Aliens don't scare me." "Besides," said his friend, moving a chess piece, "I hear they've never actually been in a fight before. They just make threats." The waitress laughed. "Like my sister's ex-husband. All talk, no action." All three chuckled, demonstrating exactly what confused the Viridians most about humans: the ability to find humor even in dangerous situations. As the 30-day deadline grew closer, President White addressed the world from the Oval Office. "We continue to reach out to the Viridian Collective with offers of peaceful communication," she said calmly. "But we also continue to prepare our defenses. Earth will not surrender." She paused, then added with a slight smile, "And to the Viridians watching this broadcast, we're still ready to talk when you're ready to stop making threats and start making friends." Across the solar system, humans waited, prepared, and strangely enough, continued to laugh. The 30-day deadline arrived. Just as the Viridians had promised, a fleet of their ships appeared near Earth's moon. They were massive, each one nearly the size of a small city, and their hulls gleamed with a strange blue-green light. On the bridge of the Earth Defense Force flagship Intrepid, Captain Ryan Turner watched the alien ships on the main screen. He was a calm man with steady hands and 20 years of space experience. "They're taking up attack positions," reported his first officer, a young woman named Kelly Bishop. Captain Turner nodded. "Send the message we prepared." Kelly pressed a few buttons on her console. "Message sent, sir." On the main screen, the face of Supreme Commander Zixcora appeared. The alien's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, showing what humans now knew was annoyance. "Your time has ended," the alien said. "Surrender now or face destruction." Captain Turner leaned forward in his chair. "This is Captain Ryan Turner of the Earth Defense Force. We respectfully decline your demand for surrender. However, we remain open to discussing peaceful alternatives that could benefit both our peoples." The alien commander's color darkened. "Your response is noted. Now witness the power of the Viridian Collective." The screen went blank. Moments later, 3 Viridian warships broke formation and headed toward the moon, where humans had built a weather monitoring station. "They're targeting the lunar station," Kelly said. "It's unmanned, but still." "Now," Captain Turner said calmly into his communicator. From behind the dark side of the moon, 20 smaller Earth ships suddenly appeared. They had been hiding there for days, waiting for this moment. The Earth vessels moved quickly, darting between the larger alien ships like fish around sharks. On the Viridian command ship, Supreme Commander Zixcora watched in confusion as the human vessels executed a complex maneuver his tacticians had never seen before. "What are they doing?" he demanded. "Why don't they form a proper battle line?" His second-in-command, a smaller Viridian with lighter coloring, looked equally confused. "They're not following any known combat protocol, Supreme Commander. They're just moving randomly." But it wasn't random. The Earth ships had trained for this exact scenario. While the Viridians had expected a head-on confrontation, the humans instead executed what they called a swarm attack, surrounding individual alien vessels and targeting specific systems. From his command chair, Captain Turner watched as the first part of their plan unfolded. "Activate EMP weapons," he ordered. Across the 20 Earth ships, crews activated their electromagnetic pulse weapons, technology the Viridians considered primitive and had not protected against. The pulses hit 3 of the alien cruisers, causing their systems to flicker and fail. The Viridians fired back with advanced energy weapons, but the human ships moved too quickly and unpredictably for their targeting systems, which were designed for conventional warfare. "Their ships are huge but slow," Captain Turner observed, "and their weapons can't lock onto anything that doesn't move in a straight line." Within minutes, 5 Viridian ships had been disabled without being destroyed. The humans had specifically targeted engines and weapon systems, leaving life support and other essential systems intact. On the Viridian command ship, panic was setting in, an emotion the species rarely experienced. "How is this possible?" Supreme Commander Zixcora demanded. "They were laughing days ago. They should be running away in fear." The science officer, who had been studying human behavior, spoke up. "Supreme Commander, I believe we've misunderstood human psychology. Their laughter wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a sign of confidence. Zixcora's color changed to a deep purple, a sign of rage among his species. Impossible. No species laughs at danger. Humans do, the science officer said quietly. And they also fight differently than any species we've encountered. They don't follow predictable patterns. As the battle continued, it became clear that the Viridians were losing their first real combat experience. After 7 of their ships had been disabled, the remaining vessels pulled back into a defensive formation. Captain Turner saw his opportunity. "Send another message," he told Kelly. Once again, the face of Supreme Commander Zixcora appeared on the screen, though now his color was much paler than before. "Your ships are disabled but not destroyed," Captain Turner said. "We could have killed your crews, but that's not our goal. Now that we understand each other better, perhaps we can talk again, this time as equals." There was a long pause before the alien commander responded. "The Viridian Collective will consider your proposal." As the transmission ended, the bridge crew of the Intrepid broke into applause and relieved laughter. 3 days after the skirmish, representatives from Earth and the Viridian Collective met at a neutral location, an orbital station positioned between Earth and Mars. The station had been quickly modified to accommodate both species, with adjustments for the aliens' different gravity and atmosphere needs. Charles Webb, Earth's most experienced diplomat, led the human team. He was an older man with silver hair and kind eyes that hid a sharp mind. Susan Miller and Dr. Eric Johnson, the linguist, joined him, along with a small security team. When the Viridian delegation entered the meeting room, the humans noticed immediate differences. Supreme Commander Zixcora was still present, but his posture was less aggressive. 6 other aliens accompanied him, representing the other species of the collective. "We are prepared to discuss terms," Zixcora announced without greeting. His translator device made his voice sound slightly less harsh than before. "Welcome," Charles said with a small bow. "We appreciate this opportunity for dialogue." The aliens exchanged glances, clearly surprised by the politeness. "You defeated our ships," said one of the other aliens, a tall, thin creature with gray skin. "Why do you not demand our surrender?" Charles smiled. "Because that's not our goal. We defend ourselves when attacked, but we prefer cooperation to conflict." The aliens seemed confused by this response. They spoke quietly among themselves in their own language. Dr. Johnson leaned close to Susan. "They're struggling to understand our approach. Their culture has no concept of winning without dominating." Finally, Zixcora spoke again. "What are your demands?" "We have no demands," Charles replied. "We have proposals for mutual benefit. First, recognition of Earth and all human territories as sovereign and independent. Second, establishment of trade and cultural exchange protocols. And third," Susan added, "a non-aggression pact between our peoples." The gray-skinned alien stepped forward. "This makes no sense. You have military advantage. According to universal principles, you should use it to claim territory and resources." Dr. Helen Wright, the team's anthropologist, spoke up. "Perhaps those principles aren't as universal as you thought. Humans have a different perspective." "What perspective is this?" asked another alien, smaller than the others with 4 arms and green scales. "We've learned through our own history that conquest rarely leads to lasting peace," Dr. Wright explained. "We've found that cooperation benefits everyone more in the long run." The aliens again consulted among themselves, clearly struggling with these new ideas. "To help you understand," Charles suggested, "we would like to share our history with you, both our successes and our many mistakes." What followed was a 3-day discussion unlike any diplomatic meeting in Earth's history. The humans openly shared their violent past, their wars, their gradual development of international cooperation, and their continued struggles with conflict resolution. The Viridians were especially fascinated by the human concept of mutual assured destruction, how two powerful nations had once pointed planet-destroying weapons at each other, but chose not to use them. You had the power to destroy your enemies, but did not use it. Zix-Kor asked, his translator unable to fully convey his amazement. We realize that some victories aren't worth the cost, Susan explained. Both sides would have been destroyed. But one would have won, insisted the gray-skinned alien. No, Admiral Powell, who had joined the talks on the second day, said firmly. In total war, nobody wins. That's something we learned the hard way. On the third day, Dr. Wright decided to address the issue that had started everything, the human laughter. In our culture, she explained, laughter has many functions. One is dealing with stress or absurdity. When your commander threatened us, we laughed not because we weren't taking you seriously, but because the situation seemed absurd to us. Absurd? Zix-Kor asked. Meeting a new species should be a time for learning and exchange, Dr. Wright said. Starting with threats seemed backward to us, like threatening someone before saying hello. To everyone's surprise, one of the smaller aliens made a strange chirping sound. The others looked shocked. I apologize, the alien said. I think I just experienced humor. The image of threatening before greeting does seem illogical when presented that way. By the end of the third day, a framework for peace had been established. The Viridians agreed to recognize human independence, and humans agreed to share certain technologies and resources. Both sides would meet again in 1 month to formalize the agreement. As the meeting ended, Zix-Kor approached Charles privately. Your approach to conflict is strange to us, the alien commander admitted. But perhaps 6 months after the peace treaty was signed, the first official cultural exchange program began. 10 humans traveled to the Viridian homeworld, while a delegation of aliens came to Earth. Linda Cooper, a diplomat with specialization in new cultures, led the human team to the Viridian capital planet. As they stepped off their ship, the humans immediately felt the difference in gravity and air pressure. Despite their special suits, moving felt like walking through water. Welcome to Varus Prime, said their guide, a Viridian named Telk. We have prepared living quarters that should meet your biological needs. Linda looked around in wonder. The alien city was unlike anything on Earth. Buildings rose thousands of feet into the purple sky, with no apparent concern for beauty, only for size and intimidation. Your structures are impressive, Linda said politely. They must take great skill to build. Telk seemed confused by her comment. They are designed to demonstrate power, not skill. Does your dwelling not signal your status to others? Most human homes are designed for comfort rather than status, Linda explained. We spend time in our homes to relax and feel safe. Safe from what? Asked Telk. Do you have predators in your cities? Linda smiled. Not anymore. But the feeling of safety remains important to us. As the tour continued, the humans noticed that Viridians rarely spoke to each other casually or touched in public. Every interaction seemed formal and based on clear hierarchies. Do Viridians have friends? Asked Dr. Ben Riley, the team's psychologist, during their first meal in the alien dining hall. Telk's skin color shifted slightly. We have alliance bonds and protection circles. Is that what you mean by friends? Not exactly, Ben said. Friends are people we enjoy spending time with, even when we don't need anything from them. The concept seemed to confuse the Viridians greatly. Meanwhile, on Earth, Peter Walsh led the alien delegation through New York City. The visitors were overwhelmed by the noise, the crowds, and especially the way humans interacted. Your species touches each other without establishing dominance first, observed Mira, a smaller Viridian with light blue coloring. How do you know who to obey? Peter laughed. We don't obey each other in casual situations. Most of our daily interactions are between equals. The aliens watched in fascination as 2 human friends met on the street, hugged, and talked excitedly. They are exchanging information with such high energy, noted another alien. Is this an emergency? No, Peter explained. They're just happy to see each other. The biggest cultural shock came when Peter took the delegation to a comedy club. The aliens sat stiffly as humans around them laughed at the performer on stage. "The human on stage is deliberately saying things that are not true," whispered Mira. "Why do the others make the laughing noise?" "The comedian is telling jokes. Stories with unexpected endings that create humor," Peter explained. "Laughter is our way of showing we enjoy them." "And this performer's status is not damaged by being laughed at?" asked another alien. "Actually, the better they make people laugh, the higher their status," Peter said. "Being funny is valued in human culture." This concept amazed the aliens. In their society, being the subject of laughter would be deeply shameful. As the weeks passed, both groups began to understand each other better. The humans learned that the Viridian's strict hierarchy provided stability and security to a species that had evolved as prey. The Viridians began to appreciate that human flexibility and humor weren't signs of weakness but of adaptability. On the last day of her visit, Linda sat with Telk in a viewing area overlooking the capital city. "Has this exchange been useful?" she asked. Telk's color shifted to a soft purple, which Linda now knew indicated thoughtfulness. "When we first met humans, we believed your laughter was a defect, a failure to properly assess danger," Telk said. "Now I understand it is a strength. You can face danger without fear controlling your actions." Linda nodded. "And we've learned from you too. Your society's clear roles and responsibilities have survived for thousands of years without the conflicts that have plagued human history." "Perhaps," Telk suggested, his color brightening. "Both approaches have value." "That," Linda replied with a smile, "is exactly the point of cultural exchange." 3 years after first contact, humans and Viridians gathered for the opening ceremony of Harmony Point, a joint space station built at the edge of the solar system. The station was massive, combining human design ideas of comfort and beauty with Viridian engineering excellence. Susan Miller, now serving as Earth's ambassador to the Viridian Collective, stood beside Supreme Commander Zix Cora, who had a new title, Diplomatic Overseer. The large meeting hall was filled with representatives from both species, plus journalists and dignitaries. 3 years ago, our first meeting didn't go well," Susan said to the crowd with a small smile. "In fact, it nearly led to war." Many of the humans in the audience chuckled at the memory. The Viridians didn't laugh, but their colors shifted to lighter shades, their way of showing amusement, humans had learned. "When we first encountered humans," Zix Cora said, his translator now programmed to sound more natural, "we thought their laughter was a sign of insanity or weakness. We now understand it represents something our culture had forgotten: the ability to recognize absurdity even in serious situations." He paused, then added, "This ability to see life from different perspectives is perhaps humanity's greatest strength." President Karen White stepped forward to cut the ceremonial ribbon. "Harmony Point represents more than cooperation between our species. It represents a new understanding that different does not mean wrong, and that diversity makes us all stronger." As the ribbon was cut, lights came on throughout the station. The crowd applauded, humans with their hands, Viridians by changing their skin colors in unison, creating a beautiful wave of blue and purple. Later, at the reception, Admiral Powell, now retired, stood with Zix Cora near a large window looking out at the stars. "I've been meaning to ask you something," Powell said. "In all your years conquering other planets, did you ever actually fire those impressive weapons of yours?" Zix Cora's color shifted to what Powell now recognized as embarrassment. "You were the first species that required it. All others surrendered immediately." Powell laughed. "So we were right. You were bluffing." "Not entirely," Zix Cora corrected. "We would have used them if necessary. But our strategy had always worked before. Show strength, make threats, collect new territories. Until humans started laughing," Powell finished. "Yes, of all the possible responses our strategists had planned for, laughter was not one of them." Zixcora's color lightened. It may have saved countless lives on both sides. Powell nodded. Sometimes the best response to a threat isn't a counter-threat. Sometimes it's just pointing out how ridiculous the situation is. Across the room, Dr. Helen Wright was explaining human humor to a group of young Viridians who had been born after first contact. These youngsters, growing up in the new era of cooperation, were more open to human ideas. So a joke works by setting up an expectation, then surprising you with something different, asked one young Viridian. Exactly, Helen said. Let me show you. Why did the human bring a ladder to the bar? The Viridians looked confused. For reaching something high? No, because he heard the drinks were on the house. There was a moment of silence. Then one of the young Viridians made a chirping sound, their version of laughter. The others soon joined in. Nearby, Linda Cooper watched with a smile. They're learning to laugh, she said to Telk, who had become her friend over the years. And we're learning when to take things seriously, Telk replied. Not everything is a threat or a challenge. In the center of the room, President White was speaking with representatives from 3 new alien species who had recently made contact with the Human Viridian Alliance. These newcomers had approached cautiously, having heard stories about the powerful alliance. We were told the Viridians were dangerous conquerors, said one of the new aliens. Yet here they are, working peacefully with humans. President White smiled. Things change when you learn to see from another's perspective. The Viridians taught us about order and stability. We taught them about flexibility and humor. And together, added Zixcora, joining the conversation, we discovered something neither of us knew alone, that the universe is big enough for many ways of thinking. As the celebration continued, humans and Viridians mingled together, no longer separated by fear or misunderstanding. The stars outside seemed brighter somehow, as if approving of this new friendship between 2 very different peoples. And occasionally, human laughter mixed with Viridian color changes, creating a harmony that once seemed impossible, all because when aliens declared war, humans just started laughing.